Welcome to Shark Week 2020. My name is Kelly Reeves and this is Aubrey Bianco, and we are going to answer for you some of the questions that were submitted through our virtual shark question box. All right, so our first question is, how do sharks sleep?
So sharks don't really sleep the same way that we do as humans. They have restful periods and then active periods. So they'll kind of rest on the bottom of the seafloor. They can also rest while they're swimming.
So they don't really close their eyes and go to sleep?
No, they just kind of go into almost like a trance. So some sharks have to continuously swim in order to breathe. And those that have to keep on swimming, they'll have their eyes open, but they'll go into like a trance and they're just swimming and kind of still subconsciously awake, but resting.
Great, thank you. All right, how do sharks breathe?
So breathing is really interesting. When we breathe, we inhale through our mouth and exhale. We'll inhale oxygen and we'll exhale carbon dioxide. Sharks have gills. Their gills act as their lungs for us. So they'll inhale, so to speak, water, which has lots of oxygen. So that oxygen will go over their gills, and these tiny little blood vessels pick the oxygen out of the water. And they also have to exhale out that carbon dioxide. So they'll get rid of that carbon dioxide waste through their gills as well. Now, some sharks, like I was just saying, they have to continuously move in order to live, basically, and in order to breathe. Those are our ram ventilators. So they have to keep swimming and moving water over their gills. Whereas other sharks can sit on the bottom of the seafloor and rest, and they have special buccal or cheek muscles that pump water over their gills.
That's pretty interesting. Yeah. And somebody asked, what is the largest shark that is currently known about?
So the largest living shark is our whale shark. And our whale shark is a beautiful, beautiful species. And even though they can reach up to 60 feet long, they are very gentle giants. They don't feed on, say, seals or fish all that much. They mainly are filter feeders. So they'll open their big mouth and just swim and kind of pick out all these tiny little plankton and shrimp and things like that out of the water as they're swimming.
Well, a lot of people are excited about our pier opening back up, and they have asked what kind of sharks are seen swimming by our pier.
So we have about 16 different shark species that hang out along coastal Alabama. One of the main ones that we'll see around our pier are black-tip sharks, spinner sharks, and Atlantic shark-nose sharks. We do see them around our pier, and that's because our pier basically acts as an artificial reef. So we have pilings that hold our pier in place, and all these barnacles and other creatures grow on those pilings. And then it creates fish to congregate around those pilings, and then there's lots of food for the sharks. There's also shade there as well, so they appreciate that.
In fact, one of the gentlemen that works with the pier got a video of some sharks yesterday. Another question that's been asked is, do sharks have bones?
But sharks actually have cartilage, so they're cartilaginous fish. They're part of the family called elasmobranchs, which is made up of sharks, rays, and skates. So instead of having those harder bones, they have, again, that cartilage, kind of like our ear. That's what makes their ears so flexible. That's what makes their bodies pretty flexible as well.
It's also why we don't find skeletal remains or fossilized sharks.
That's very true. We don't really find their skeletons. Now we can find their teeth. Their teeth have a different kind of protein in there. So those can be fossilized and then found along our beaches or just out in the water as well.
Well, do sharks have ears? I mean, can they actually hear?
So they don't have ears the same way we do. We have our outer ear. They have kind of like a hole in the side of their head on either side, and that leads to their inner ear, which is what we have as well. They kind of pick up on a lot of vibrations. They can actually pick up on a fish that's struggling in the water several miles away. So yeah, they have pretty good hearing.
That's really cool. How come sharks don't sink to the bottom or float to the surface?
So that's really a great question. A lot of fish have what we call a swim bladder. And basically what that does is it kind of helps them adjust their buoyancy, or where they're swimming at in the water column, how shallow to the water they are, or how deep in the water they are. But sharks don't really have that swim bladder. They actually use their liver. They have what's called squalene oil in their liver, and it keeps them a little bit heavier than the water. So they kind of stay below the surface of the water, and then they'll use their fins to help with their buoyancy of swimming rather than sinking.
Well, what is the fastest shark in the world?
The fastest shark in the world is actually a shark that we see out in our Gulf of Mexico, and it is the short-fin mako shark. They can reach speeds up to 45 miles per hour, which is pretty quick.
Fast.
They are considered the fastest fish, fastest fish in the world.
For our last question, do some sharks swim in groups or schools like fish, or do they prefer to be solitary?
So it depends on the species. Some larger sharks kind of are a little bit more solitary, meaning that they swim on their own, but they can congregate in groups if, say, there's a feeding frenzy, so a large school of fish that they're going after, or if they're ready to breed or spawn. There are some species that do actually they're a little bit more social in a way, so they do kind of gather in groups, just like that video that we saw a little bit earlier about those sharks around the pier. Those are a bunch of black-tipped sharks, and they will kind of gather in groups and hang out in the same area.
All right. Well, thank you very much. And if you have any other questions, put them in the comments or send us an email to golfevents.statepark@dcnr.alabama.gov, and we'll answer them on Friday.